This is BYU Sports Nation, brought to you by the BYU Store, simulcast on BYU TV and BYU Radio. Now, from Studio B, here's Spencer Linton and Jarom Jordan.
BYU Sports Nation is live, your day-to-day play-by-play in Studio B, presented by the BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere. Happy Monday, November 22nd, for so many reasons. Wherever and however you're connected, great to have you with us. I'm Spencer Linton, teamed up with a guy who would much rather throw a burrito than eat one, Jarom Jordan.
So, yeah, I Venmo'd someone. I was like, hey, throw a burrito at Spencer. Well, it got out of hand, apparently. Kalani Sitake told you the following after the burrito game.
I think they were doing some things, throwing food, burritos at us from the stands, and I think it got kind of the guys a little upset.
What? They were throwing burritos and food?
What the heck?
Wow.
Well,
really?
I caught one.
Really?
So I may just take a bite of
The
this.
first time we have an audience
here.
in Studio B and they throw burritos at
Got a
us.
sausage. Did you just throw a burrito at me? That reminded
This
me of
burrito is delicious and filling.
Anchorman. Yeah. It's not hot enough. You know what? I'm throwing it back. Throwing it back at Don Rigby. The burrito game. That's what that was.
It was a very unique scenario. I don't know what it is about those road games in the Sun Belt Conference, but golly, they're just super interesting,
They're
Jarom.
great.
They're just super interesting.
BYU should play the Sun Belt on the road more, said no one. Dude, what a crazy game. What a crazy Saturday, right?
Yes.
Like maybe the best Saturday in BYU sports history. That was amazing.
Now, what's funny is Kalani brings that up, and then he goes on this long answer, and he gave us a lot of great information in that. I wanted to go back and ask about the burritos, but we've got sports information directors going, hey, we got to go. So I'm like, I guess I should
we got to talk about burritos.
Ask about the actual game.
Yeah.
But, yeah, the burritos? Goodness. Georgia Southern.
Who throws a burrito?
Burrito this.
Who throws a burrito? A burrito is meant to be consumed. I was told an instant replay of all the burritos being thrown. That cost roughly $10, so it didn't cut into the budget too much. We can afford that.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
I'm hungry now.
Are you hungry?
Yeah. We've
I
got a
did go to
microwave down
McDonald's
here
this
somewhere.
morning.
Can someone microwave this? I want to eat this later.
Can someone microwave this? You go microwave it.
I'm on live TV. I can't leave right now.
In an hour. Yeah. Get one of our interns. We don't have interns, by the way. Interns.
We have student production
They're
assistants,
paid
and they're amazing.
employees.
This is the highlight of their day, throwing burritos at the talent.
What? Oh, I thought it was Georgia Southern fans. My bad.
Holy cow.
Okay.
Here is your Monday show lineup now that we've got the burrito incident out of the way. It includes a full-on reveling session for what BYU Athletics just pulled off in one of the superest Saturdays ever. Incredible weekend for BYU. Plus, it's another Matich Monday. ESPN's Trevor Matich joins us to recap BYU's win at Georgia Southern. He wants to send a few burritos back, I imagine. And we'll discuss BYU's updated chances at a New Year's Six bowl game. Plus, two national champions join us. Not one, but two. Connor Mantz and Whittni Orton recap their national championship runs. Bring on today's BYU Sports Nation headline.
Let's keep it simple. BYU wins at everything.
Yep.
Back to you.
Okay. With that said,
Yep.
all rise and shout.
Look at the graphic.
It's true. I see no lies on the screen.
Nope.
I see no lies.
Hey, the receipt says all I do is win, no matter what.
Okay, that for real takes care of today's headlines on a Monday. So let's just get right to it. Again, all rise and shout. It's time for What's Trending.
You're talking about it, and so are we. It's What's Trending on BYU Sports Nation.
Sensational, super stupendous Saturday. BYU, and we will go through this chronologically, enjoying an epic Saturday. Jarom, let's start with women's cross country early on Saturday morning.
In the morning, the women take second. Whittni Orton wins the individual cross country national championship, last race of her, college career there in cross country, and she wins. It's awesome. It was such a big deal. My mom called me. She's like, Whittni Orton. It was
amazing.
Awesome. Yeah.
Amazing.
Congratulations to Whittni. And the women finished second. Amazing as a team. Congrats. It was awesome.
Final race. And again, Whittni is incredible, but she was definitely not the favorite in this race.
No. She didn't come out of nowhere, but she came from kind of behind the pack, if you will, before the race to win, which is so awesome. So congratulations to Whittni Orton on the championship.
We will speak with Whittni later in the program. Just half of the national champions after that Super Saturday. Connor Mantz defended his individual national championship in cross country, holding off incredible runners. And he said that he just has the ability to endure pain and suffering better than most, which is crazy. He also said, when I got out in front, I was able to enjoy the last 100 yards. Who enjoys the last 100 yards of a sprint 10K?
I mean, that's insane. 6-ish miles, right? He pulled away from the pack in an incredible way in the final 1K. And congratulations to Connor, man. And that mustache gets it done.
Let's talk about that because one of my favorite sportscasters in all the land, John Anderson, dubbed Connor Mantz's mustache a glorious lip sweater. And I think we should call it that from now on.
A lip
Connor
sweater.
Mantz's glorious lip sweater.
That's hilarious.
It will visit Studio B later today. Unless you shaved it off, but I can't imagine you would shave it off after that, Ron.
Doubt it. Okay, and then the third national championship was the men's soccer team, which is a club, and they beat Texas 3-1. Everyone's beating Texas. Kansas football, BYU men's soccer. Congratulations. The 10th club national championship for BYU. The Cougars are awesome. I would love one day for BYU men's soccer to be an NCAA sport. Perhaps that's something in the future. Perhaps it's not.
And I know people are asking, well, hey, what about the jump up to a Power 5 conference? The Big 12 does not play men's soccer.
But they could be in another league, just like the MPSF is for men's volleyball.
Yes, that's what it would take.
The conference isn't the issue. It's whether BYU wants to add another women's sport and men's sport, because that's what you'd have to do.
3 national championships.
That's besides the point. Congratulations to men's soccer.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Okay, then we move into the afternoon. BYU women's basketball entered the day undefeated and were hosting Boise State, then proceeded to rout the Broncos by 44, 84-40. You called the game.
Yeah, I was bored. Here's what it sounded like. Mosley goes to the ground, tipped away. Gonzalez comes out with it, goes to the right hand again. Shaylee Gonzalez, first player in the game into double figures with 11.
It was 38-25 in the third quarter.
Yeah, and then BYU just exploded. Nani Falatea, freshman guard. You've seen her in person a couple times.
She can shoot it.
Dude, 4-4 from 3. 5-5 from the field. She was great, man. It was good. I wish the football team had done the same thing against Boise State, but anyway.
A little payback.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like payback, but yeah.
BYU women's basketball more than doubles up Boise State. They're now 5-0, and they're going to be flirting with the top 25 very soon.
Heck yeah, man. Really good team. Okay, women's volleyball wins the West Coast Conference Championship. Didn't actually need to play the match to do it because, they had clinched right before the match, but beat St. Mary's in 4. And women's volleyball is 27-1, 20-match win streak. San Diego, Tuesday on the road in the Slim Gym to finish the regular season. WCC champs. Probably going to host first and second round of the NCAA tournament on December 3rd and 4th, and then have to go on the road for the Sweet 16, assuming the Cougars get there, and they will.
So BYU had a chance to run the table in the West Coast Conference in 2018 and lost the final regular season match at LMU.
Mm-hmm.
Now at San Diego.
Without McKenna Miller.
So they've got to exercise some demons.
Yes. Exorcise with an O.
BYU women's volleyball on top of the West Coast Conference, the best of the West Coast Conference.
Yeah, baby. By the way, the moment Texas leaves the Big 12, because they're like the number 1 or 2 team in the country all year, BYU's going to go win the Big 12 soon, like as soon as Texas is gone. I know BYU wants to win it when Texas is in there.
Absolutely. Okay, let's push pause on the Super Saturday recap because we have a little bit of breaking news on BYU Sports Nation.
BYU Sports Nation breaking news.
The BYU men's basketball team in the newest AP poll, number 18.
18, okay, nice. Last week, Shep said 17, you and I said 18 or 19. So, yeah, right in that same range of what we thought. 18, baby! Let's go. Men's hoops is going to stay in the top 20. Here's my hot take on this. Men's hoops will stay in the top 25 the whole year. The rest of the year, BYU will stay in.
Wow. That would be something. It's tough to do in a sport that has so much parity and so many more games. There's just a lot of movement.
BYU is going to lose maybe one game in non-con.
Oregon, by the way, who was number 12 when BYU beat them by 32 points, fell out of the rankings.
Oh.
And they probably should after a 32-point de facto home loss in Portland to BYU, who was unranked at the time.
Connor Mantz has lost the mustache. Jason Shepard was in the airport with Mantz. They met up in like Atlanta or something. He shaved the mustache.
Okay.
It's gone.
Well, maybe this is a thing. We'll ask him about it. Maybe this is a thing where, like, after you win the national championship, Kate, you just start over again and then you grow another mustache.
The lip sweater. He's not growing another one.
Glorious lip sweater.
For the natty. In like 20 years, his kids will be like, "Why did you have a mustache, Dad?" And he's like, I don't know.
Well, Ed Eyestone still fields those questions as well.
Yes, he does.
Okay, back to our chronological recap of the super stupendous, sensational Saturday of BYU athletics. After women's volleyball won a WCC title, we go to football now. BYU beat Georgia Southern 34-17 with a dominant second-half performance. They shut out the Eagles on their home field in the second half. Puka Nacua, went beast mode in more than one way. 83 yards, 2 touchdowns. In fact, let's take a look at that memorable second touchdown catch that really iced the game.
They go for the end zone to Puka. Puka makes the catch, turns back to the ball. He's got a touchdown! Touchdown, Puka Nacua! Jaron Hall to Puka for the second time today, and the celebration flag will fly with 10:38 to go. The Cougs put another one on the board, 33-17 with the PAT pending.
Okay, there was this mystery about why Puka drew a penalty after that. He lifted up his shirt, and people were like, what was on his shirt? I was like, you know what, I'm going to go find out. So at that point, I hurried down from the press box, went and found the Nacua brothers on the sideline. I said, hey, everybody across Cougar Nation wants to know what was on your shirt. He's like, oh, okay. Holds it up. He's like, it's just a T-shirt that he and his brother have for name, image, and likeness.
Yeah.
So, and they convened, the referees did, and took away the penalty. Else, Puka would have been ejected and not been eligible to play in the USC game.
Kalani brought that up after the game. I thought that was a poignant, topic there is, oh my gosh, that would have been bad. No Puka Nacua. By the way, no Peyton Wilgar is a huge loss for BYU's defense. That's a bummer, man.
We noticed that on Saturday.
He did say, I'll be back, Cougar Nation, which to me is, I'll be back next year at BYU, which is a great thing. I hate that he got hurt, but there was a chance that maybe he'd go pro. So it feels like he's come back, but who knows?
Shoulder surgery, 4 to 6 months recovery expected for that.
Labrum.
Jaron Hall, 17-29. He was dynamite again, 312 yards, 2 touchdowns. Tyler Algergos for over 100 yards rushing. And Jacob Robinson, Jim.
Player of the game.
2 interceptions. He's now tied with Malik Moore for the team lead. 3 interceptions. Jacob Robinson.
Yeah, that one right there was incredible. And again, the role of turnovers and takeaways. BYU is 9-0 when positive in the margin. All 9 wins, BYU is positive. This team has taken care of the ball and made itself better than it probably was going to be in an average season. Meaning where BYU turns it over more and doesn't take it away as much. Okay? 2016 is 9-4 because the offense struggles at times, but the defense had 31 takeaways. So they're a 9-4 team that should have been an 11-2 team because the offense should have been better with Taysom Hill and Jamal Williams. But props to this team for taking care of the ball. Jaron Hall still only 3 picks. Incredible. And then and BYU as a team only 3 picks all year offensively. Then defensively 14. Amazing.
BYU up to number 13 in the latest AP poll. What will they do in the latest college football playoff rankings when that poll is revealed tomorrow evening? By the way, I accidentally called Jacob Justin Robinson, and I was like,
nice.
Now what you don't know, Jacob, is that there was a defensive back at BYU when I was in school named Justin Robinson.
With a similar size.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I was like, I apologize for calling
and then
you Justin
Robinson. And then he threw a burrito at you. Okay, game of the day, though, is women's soccer.
Oh, we've saved the best for last.
Soccer! Yeah!
Unbelievable.
Okay, I start the radio broadcast with Men's Hoops, and I said, consider me distracted. There are 15 seconds left in this game, and I'm just watching as BYU wins. Virginia was top 5 like all year, number 1 for a bunch of the year.
The number 1 overall seed in the tournament.
They're incredible. BYU wins on their home field thanks to Cameron Tucker.
Tucker looking for the steal, tripped up. No foul was called, and now Cam gets a pass from Coulihan. Cameron in the box, a shot with the right foot, finds the back of the net! Cameron Tucker in full stride,
Bend it in!
And that goal sends BYU to the Elite Eight, the NCAA quarterfinals, which BYU hosts on Saturday at 7 Eastern. TBD TV details. Of course, we've put in a bid to do the game. We're hoping to find that out on Wednesday. Tickets go on sale Tuesday at 10 a.m. BYU is going to play South Carolina, who's an unseeded team, who's really good out of the SEC, who took out North Carolina in the first round. But still, a home game where BYU is favored to get to the College Cup, the Final Four, where BYU has never been. It will have taken I've already thought about what I'm going to say if and when BYU wins.
Oh, my goodness.
With Jennifer Rockwood. I've scripted it in my mind already, like Jim Nance at the NCAA championship game, okay? I'm so excited about it because Saturday is now loaded, bro. You're going to be at the Coliseum. BYU against USC, who just gave up 62 to UCLA, by the way. Holy shit.
Huge game for BYU to close out what they hope is a 10-win season and keep any hopes of a big-time bowl game alive.
What, the Independence Bowl isn't big enough for you? Men's hoops at Utah, and then right before those two, women's soccer. Saturday. Cannot wait. Congratulations to women's soccer.
There are so many layers to the soccer game. We all knew going into the game that this window of opportunity for BYU to potentially host and get to a Final Four was there. But standing in the way is the team that knocked them out of the tournament in the spring, the #1 overall seed at their place. And it's the step that BYU, in a lot of ways, throughout so much success, has not been able to climb. And that's like getting the huge win, an upset win in the tournament.
Yes, against Santa Clara in the early 2000s, against Stanford, in 2019.
Yes.
Now
North Carolina in 2012.
North Carolina. Now BYU's done it. Now BYU can beat a South Carolina squad that's 14-6-1, that has some big wins, but also hasn't given up a goal in the NCAA tournament either. So it's going to be a fun matchup Saturday night, man.
Massive opportunity. Okay? We're not done with women's soccer because one of the greatest to ever play BYU women's soccer, Ashley Hatch, won an NWSL championship with the Washington Spirit over the Chicago Red Stars. She's the Golden Boot winner. She's essentially first-team All-Pro in the NWSL, Ashley Hatch. Amazing.
Yeah, she's awesome. This just in from BYU men's soccer. Lip sweaters are the standard for winning natties, Whittni Orton being the exception, of course, because they called it stationals. They all had stashes, too. So congrats to men's soccer. And then men's hoops, of course. Number 18 in the AP poll we just mentioned, just came out, defeated Central Methodist 97-61. Alex Barcelo was knocking down threes in the first half. Again. It sounded like this.
Tijon Lucas into the lane. Right hand looking for somebody. Throws back to Alex Barcelo. 30 feet out.
Wow.
Oh, baby. Alex Barcelo, the sniper from deep. That's 2 from deep, and he's 4 of 4 from 3. 16 points.
I had fun calling that on the radio, by the way. I'm the third string there. That was fun.
That dude is nails.
He's
makes
incredible.
So many big shots. Like whatever. Like it's comical how easy it is for him in those critical situations. How good of a three-point shooter he is.
Not a critical situation per se, but against Central
time
Methodist.
Winding down.
Yes.
Crunch time moments. He's so good. All right, Alex Barcelo takes care of business. BYU basketball.
That was an amazing
up to number 18, and we have now officially recapped Saturday. You ready to go home?
Let's grab some of these burritos.
Let's celebrate. We'll warm up some of these burritos in the microwave.
Yeah.
Our question of the day, we want you to answer, what was the best of the best in Cougar sports on Saturday? Let's go to Voice of the Nation.
This is the Voice of the Nation on BYU Sports Nation.
John Hatch on Instagram says, bringing home 2 individual cross-country national championships. When you're at the very top of your sport, that's pretty cool, in my honest opinion.
And men's soccer at the club. They can't go and play in the NCAA. They just have to do what they have to do at the club level. So congrats to those guys, too. That's awesome. Okay, coming up, do we like Royal Oreos?
I'm hungry for Oreos now. Burritos and Oreos. ESPN's Trevor Matich will join us to discuss the burrito game against Georgia Southern. And does BYU have a shot at a New Year's Six still? We update it next. This is BYU Sports Nation.
I know what it's like to be overlooked, to be doubted, to fly under the radar. I only had one offer coming out of high school, but I was ready for every moment, every opportunity, and every shot that I got. Now I'm playing professional basketball, aiming to be one of the best shooters on the planet. And I'm just getting started. Be ready for your moment with Rapid Reboot, the future of rapid recovery.
The Professor Rock here.
The Food Nanny.
Chandler Scott here.
Samry.
Hey, everyone.
Hello.
I just want to tell you about this amazing,
Excellent.
Cool account called My Style.
My Style checking. I'm talking travel points.
Gift card. Concert tickets.
All just for using my account.
That's My Style.
So check it out.
Give it a shot. Open your My Style checking account today.
I don't know why terrible things happen to us sometimes, but I have to believe that something good is gonna come out of this.
BYU Sports Nation is presented by the BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere.
Today on the season finale of Coordinator's Corner, Special Teams Coordinator Ed Lamb, Defensive Coordinator Elisa Tuiaki join the show to recap the Georgia Southern win. Look ahead to USC. It's on the BYU TV app at the top of the hour, 1 Eastern and on demand after.
We are live in Studio B. This is your day-to-day BYU Sports play-by-play. I'm Spencer Linton. To my left sits Jarom Jordan. It is time for another Matich Monday with ESPN college football insider, analyst, and expert, not to mention the BYU national champion, Trevor Matich. Trevor, welcome back to the program. BYU now 9-2. They do enough to beat Georgia Southern in kind of a hard-fought, hostile environment. What'd you think of BYU's performance against Georgia Southern?
It was a little sloppy in the beginning, and then they came out in the second half and did what ranked teams do. They totally controlled the game. And by the way, did you guys enjoy your burritos?
Absolutely. I got a few things thrown on me, Trevor, not just burritos. It was an interesting experience.
I bet you did.
Wow.
Listen, when we were at Utah my senior year, they threw rolls and nickels at us. So
I just feel part of the club now.
Was that my senior year or freshman year? One of the two. Anyway, they were throwing things that would like bang off your helmet. It was loud up there. Burritos would just go thud. Not that big of a deal. Hey. So that's although I'll tell you what, if I were Coach Sataki at the end when they were taking these, because you guys know, I mean, with about 8 minutes to go, BYU just basically ran out the clock all the way to the end. And with less than 2 minutes to go, they were in victory formation, and Georgia Southern's defense committed 2 personal fouls while BYU was just trying to kneel on the ball by driving forward. They took the helmet off of Joe Tukuafu and, you know, all kinds of things, 2 penalties. Now they're down at the 6-yard line. If I'm BYU, I line up in victory formation and then throw a touchdown pass. Then I go for 2. That's 42 points, right? Then I would have sent 42 burritos to the Georgia Southern locker room after the game with a big thank you note, right? I'd have gathered them up off the sideline and sent them. That's what I would have done. You know, Coach Sataki took the high road and he did the classy thing. But for me, sometimes you got to put a size 16 boot in their back and grind them into the mud, and that was the time to do it.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
Really feel.
I'm with you there.
Yeah.
I was mad that BYU didn't score again. I was like, go score again.
Yes, I wanted.
Although
go ahead, Fred.
What do you want, Jared? No. Yeah, you were getting fired up there.
I'm tired of the Sun Belt on the road. I really am. Coastal Carolina, pieces of work last year. Georgia Southern throwing burritos at the guys. Yeah. Tom Homo. You know what? We don't need to play the Sun Belt on the road ever again.
When my decision to go ahead and go for that touchdown, go for 2, and send the 42 burritos to the locker room, that's based on pure sheer logic. But when your guys' emotion dies down, you'll decide and you'll see that Coach Sataki did the right thing, because this has become a famous thing around college football this week, with all the burritos and everything else adds to it. And everyone will see that BYU took the high road. That's the way you're supposed to do it. So when you guys calm down, you'll see that. My decision would have been logic, pure logic, not emotional at all.
You're right. We need to take some deep breaths here in Studio B. Okay.
I've never been logical or
I would have
emotional.
scored, and I would have gone for 2.
Yes.
Really?
And then an onside kick. Not
Whittingham. Not to humiliate you, and you're doing this? Really?
Yeah. What else was thrown at you?
Hey.
Oh, I had some adult beverages thrown on me. It was, it was an interesting experience. Really? Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Did you have to? Did you have to go see the bishop?
You know what? I felt like it because it smelled interesting on my jacket the rest of the game. But you know what? I was told that I was in the clear for that, so it's all good.
Yeah, don't get pulled over, and don't light a match. By the way,
this is great advice. Trevor Matich is with us on BYU Sports Nation. After all of that madness, Trevor, and BYU's 17-point win against Georgia Southern, the Cougars do climb a spot in the AP poll to number 13, but we all know that the college football playoff poll matters most. What do you expect to happen with BYU in the college football playoff poll after a wild weekend?
They have a chance to move up, and they should move up. I mean, that was a good win for BYU, especially the way they finished that game. So I think they'll move up. The question is, will they have enough juice to move up into probably the top 10 will be necessary in order to get a New Year's Six bid? Because that's kind of what the idea is right now. Is that a possibility? And if you look at where they are now, of course, the new ranking comes out. But here's some things that would need to happen in BYU's favor. First, they have to beat USC. It would be good if they beat them convincingly. And while USC has got some problems, they're still a very dangerous team. So that's not a given. But Oregon just lost to Utah, so BYU fans were Utah fans, and it worked. Way to cheer for the Utes. Now cheer for them again so that Oregon loses another game. And Oregon also has the rivalry game with Oregon State, so that's a possible loss. But Oregon needs to pick up another loss to drop down below BYU, maybe 2. Michigan State needs to lose, hopefully badly for BYU fans, to Penn State in the last game of the regular season, and that may drop them below BYU. Oklahoma State needs to make sure that they bounce Oklahoma out of there, because right now, in last week's poll, Oklahoma was ahead of BYU. And then BYU can't get jumped by Wisconsin. Last week in the ranking, BYU at 14, Wisconsin at 15. And Wisconsin is right now one of the hottest teams in America with a defense that statistically is playing on par with Georgia's defense. And so Wisconsin, BYU has to make sure they don't get jumped. But if all of those things happen, there's a possibility BYU could move up close enough to be considered for a New Year's Six bowl. That's for the fans to think. It's for analysts and pundits to think. The team isn't thinking that. They've got to be thinking about those Trojans.
I love just if all this happens, then this. It's hopefully it all happens. That'd be amazing.
It happened in 1984.
It certainly did.
All that happened in 1984.
You know what else happened in 84? BYU was undefeated. BYU's got 2 losses. It's
that's true too.
It's different.
BYU didn't lose to Boise State. Yeah.
Too soon still. Okay, the Nacuas.
I know.
I love the Puka Nacua play where he shoves a dude right in the face after Sampson gets pushed. Mm-hmm. This didn't happen at the end of halftime last year against Coastal Carolina. Sunbelt. What is it with the Sunbelt again? You've talked about the aggression of the receivers, mostly in actually catching the ball. But do the Nacuas, to me, Trevor, they epitomize the difference of this team versus many other BYU teams. The toughness, the fight, the juice. They brought it. I think that's partially why BYU's 9-2 and maybe not 7-4 at this point. What do you think of the Nacuas and that play and what they brought to this team?
I loved it that Puka did that. I just absolutely loved it. If the game were close, if it were a game that they couldn't afford to have a penalty, then you have to just eat that. But in the moment, it was the right thing to do. And the reason is that Georgia Southern was trying to do that back to them. Now, you can't just retaliate and get in trouble. Normally, you let them lose their composure. You don't lose yours. But I did not see that as Puka losing composure. I saw that as him coming to the defense of his brother. And I think all the team saw the same thing. And they're all brothers. I mean, every bit as much as Puka and Sampson are. And so I'm not advocating for committing personal foul penalties. You know, I got punched in the head a lot on the football field, and I never retaliated because I knew it was going to be 15 yards on them. Yay, we win, right? But there comes a time when you got to put your boot in their back and grind them into the mud. And that was a moment where brother needed to come to the defense of brother. I hope they don't do it again because it could hurt them in the game. But in that moment, it was the right thing because you're right. I mean, early on, Georgia Southern came out as the chippy team, and BYU just kind of muddled through it a little bit until BYU kind of lit on fire. And so I want to say again, I don't condone committing personal fouls. You're best off just eating that, and the next play, beating them into the ground. But there's a time when you got to push back.
ESPN's Trevor Matich is with us on another Matich Monday as part of BYU Sports Nation's coverage. Trevor, when I look at the bowl scenario, I know BYU is slated for the Independence Bowl right now in
they haven't
Shreveport,
accepted
Louisiana.
yet.
They have not accepted. And then I'm looking at a scenario in the Big 12 with a team like Texas, who is now not going to be bowl eligible after losing to West Virginia. And I'm doing the math and thinking, okay, well, I know the Big 12 is going to have an open spot for one of those bowl games. If BYU goes 10-2 and they're a top 15 team, is it not in ESPN's best interest to elevate BYU to a different bowl game? What do you think?
It would be in the broadcast, the ESPN's interest, I believe. It would be definitely in the Bowl's interest to get BYU in there, because BYU is a team that moves the needle. Texas is a team that moves the needle. But right now, that needle just poked them in the ear, and they're not going anywhere in the postseason. So having BYU is a real boon. It's also a boon for the community, because BYU fans show up. And it's not good for hotels so much, because I think BYU fans don't need to travel because they're already there, right? But BYU fans will travel. I mean, it was interesting. My freshman year at BYU, we played SMU in the Holiday Bowl, and that was the Miracle Bowl, where Jim McMahon threw that touchdown with no time left on the clock to Gordon Hudson to win the game. That was just the Miracle Bowl. What happened on that one was that a ton of BYU fans had come down from Provo to San Diego, and we were getting beat by 20 points with 4 minutes to go. So a lot of them left. They're driving up I-15. They don't have the radio on. BYU got waxed by a really good SMU team as far as they were concerned. And they didn't realize that BYU had come back to win that game until the next day when they read the paper, right? So BYU fans traveled. They've always traveled. And then they come from local and buy tickets. And that's the important thing. So you'll get guys in hotels. You'll get restaurants good, and hopefully not the bars. And you'll get fans in the seats. And you'll get viewers on TV. These are things that make BYU attractive for any bowl game.
Trevor, it's great to speak with you every week. We're looking forward to another fantastic week of college football with Ohio State and Michigan, of course, BYU and USC. And we'll make sure that we get those 42 burritos sent over to Georgia Southern.
Well, 34 now, because
we didn't
Coach
score
Sataki did not go for it. Yeah. So 34, that was BYU's final point total. Send them over there with a very nice note and say, we really appreciate you.
Thanks.
We consider you to be our reverend brothers.
Yeah.
BYU, reverend on Sundays, not so much on Saturdays.
Trevor, great to talk to you. Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
ESPN's Trevor Matich, 34 burritos. That's right, because that was the final point tally.
So you had liquor spill on you. Nice. You and Max Hall, huh?
It was great.
Yeah.
It was an interesting experience. And you know what? When I called him out and went and got my security guard buddy on the sideline, amazingly, nobody wanted to fess up to it. How about that?
Did someone just straight pour it, or was it like shaking?
Yep. Oh, yeah, shaking, thrown in my direction.
Oh, thrown in your direction.
Yeah, and then it hit my jacket. And I just looked up and I was like, really?
Well, looks like they got my Venmo. Coming up,
oh man,
not one, but two national champs in studio.
And should BYU have poured it on Saturday?
Nice. Anchor boy!
We'll discuss this BYU Sports Nation.
They prefer to be bringing the heat, getting set for success, demonstrating their drive. But when their blood and sweat turns to tears or anything else, we lay the groundwork for BYU's athletes to hit the ground running again, and you as well. Intermountain Healthcare, official medical provider for BYU Athletics.
Hi, Spencer Linton here, letting you know when your company joins the BYU team as a corporate partner, your brand can be featured in sports programming on BYU TV and BYU Radio. In addition to all of the great games, you can be part of the BYU coaches shows, place your message in Countdown to Kickoff, basketball pre- and post-game shows, and each weekday on BYU Sports Nation. We invite your team to join ours and become a corporate sponsor of BYU Athletics. For details, email sponsorship@byu.edu today.
Trio Orem Senior Living believes in empowering seniors to live life to the fullest. We help eliminate stress out of daily life. When you live at Trio, less time focusing on housework means you can socialize at one of our many events. With safety in mind, of course. And did we mention our spacious apartments with modern amenities? Learn more about setting up a private tour at TrioOrem.com.
Familiar with the BYU TV app?
Yes.
I beg your pardon?
Sure, it's got great original TV shows. But it also gives you access to family films for free.
Wow. Awesome!
So gather around, grab some popcorn, and let us do the rest.
It'll be fun.
Watch some of your favorite films anytime, anywhere. With the free BYU TV app.
I like it.
This portion of BYU Sports Nation is presented by Visible Supply Chain Management.
Women's hoops in action again tomorrow. In-state rival Utah State, 2 Eastern. BYU TV app, a little earlier game. Excited for that one. Women's hoops hasn't lost yet.
Matinee basketball, they're pursuing a top 25 ranking as well. It feels like every team is either in or very close to being into the top 25.
Right.
Isn't it glorious? It's just
the Big 12 engaged BYU is the best BYU ever. It's awesome.
He is Jeremiah. I'm Spencer. This is BYU Sports Station. To interact with the show and get content throughout the day at your convenience, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Let's whip it! Cougar Whip Around presented by Visible Supply Chain Management, tackling America's most challenging shipping problems.
Trevor Matich addressed it, but should BYU football have tried to score in its final possession?
Yes, 100%. After everything that had happened and how chippy it was late in the game, personal fouls, and the things that were happening in the student section from Georgia Southern, this was not cool, and I wanted BYU to punctuate that win. 41-17 would have sounded better than 34-17, but whatever. They got out of there 17-plus, Jarom.
Yes, they did. Kalani Sitake will never punch it in there. He just won't.
Not his style.
Would I have? Yes.
Well, and you should have seen the gestures that were being made at Kalani when he was walking onto the field, time and again. And I'm like, why did you not score another touchdown?
Sun Belt on the road. Never do it again.
Puka Nacua standing up for his brother Samson Nacua, shoving a Georgia Southern defender and drawing an unsportsmanlike penalty. Jarom, you've already answered this in part, but let's go back to it. Why are you okay with what happened there?
Because there's a certain energy and juice that you need to bring to that moment. And you got to stand up for your brother. If you draw a penalty, yes, it didn't cost BYU the game. It wasn't in a critical moment. I love it. It's literally his brother. But Puka would have done this for literally anyone on the team, I believe. And that kind of influence has changed the dynamic of this team this year.
Band of brothers. And Puka would have absolutely charged the scenario at Coastal Carolina last year were he playing for BYU.
I was upset that it didn't happen soon enough. I know there were guys kind of running over there to defend Zach Wilson, but that play fires me up more than any other play I've ever watched in BYU football.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. I mean, had it cost BYU something significant, we probably would feel differently.
But, you're up, you're playing Georgia Southern, you're going to be all right. Royal Oreo uniforms, what's better, the name or the uniforms?
Man, they're both really good. I love Oreo cookies.
Oh, it's so good, right?
So
double stuffed? You a double stuffed guy?
Yeah, I am.
Nice.
I'm all Oreos for that matter.
Mint. Mint.
Holy cow. I just think I love the clever moniker here. The Royal Oreo uniform. So I'm going to give it to the name, right? The uniform combo was fantastic, but the thought that went into this, the name, the ties to Oreo cookies, I'm going with the name. What do you got?
Name. Name's really good. The uni's pretty good, too. Love both.
Can't wait to see it against USC. BYU entered as a 6-point favorite yesterday, but we'll see.
Climbing up to 8 in some spots.
We'll see what they enter on Saturday when BYU takes on the Trojans in the Coliseum. Okay, Jarom, what would be your preferred burrito thrown at you? You had some breakfast burritos thrown at you this morning.
Probably steak.
Oh, steak?
Yeah.
Steak burrito?
Yeah.
Something that doesn't, fly out of the package and spray food all over the place.
Yeah,
probably my desired.
Earlier in the program, we got hit by burritos. Georgia Southern fans showed up to the studio. It was crazy. Should BYU bring back Tiger Wrestling for homecoming week? Andy Mickelson tweeted, as a former employee of BYU Special Collections, it's my solemn duty to periodically remind the internet.
Yeah.
The BYU offered a Tiger Wrestling as a homecoming week activity in the 60s. What in the world?
That's a little different. Well, let's not forget that BYU had a live mascot cougar as well.
Well,
okay.
Like in the 40s.
Not that much earlier. So, no, don't bring back Tiger Wrestling. Come on.
What in the
I
world?
don't want anybody to get maimed for life. Holy cow.
How did that ever happen, and whose idea was that? You're fired.
Things were just a little different in the 60s.
Well,
Clearly.
there were other issues in the 60s.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Tiger wrestling was BYU's worst situation.
It was actually a worse one, but yeah. Yeah.
Gosh. How did you feel watching Oregon get blown out in football by the team up north?
Conflicted because, again, if Utah fares well, that's one of it is BYU's best win. It is. But also, I typically want Utah to lose every game. So, hey, how about Britton Covey at the end of the half? That was an incredible play.
Oh, absolutely. And he's very close with so many people at BYU and several current BYU football players.
He would have gone to BYU in every decade of the history of the world except for the one he lived in. I believe that.
I was totally okay with it. Like, BYU needs a number of things to happen for this New Year's Six dream to stay alive, and the three things that happened above them in the poll were all very beneficial for BYU's dream. Like, the percentages are now better, clearly, of BYU getting to the New Year's Six game because of what happened to the three teams above them in the poll.
Sorry, I just heard New Year's Six and I zoned out.
You should start paying attention, bro. Start paying attention because it's becoming more real.
It's real and it's spectacular. Coming up, BYU did great this weekend, but how did we do in prop picks and double down? Not as good as you.
The two best collegiate cross-country runners in the country are live in studio together.
Yeah, baby.
They've got some hardware with them as well. This is BYU Sports Nation.
If I got hurt and was laid up at home, I wouldn't even think to call a lawyer. What a hassle. I'd want to meet them first.
What if I told you that for your first consultation, your lawyer will come to you, home or hospital?
Really?
Really.
They do that?
If you've been seriously injured, we'll come to you. It's your job to get better. It's our job to deal with the insurance companies and protect your legal rights.
Learn more at siegfriedandjensen.com.
Those who leave the most meaningful legacy seem to be the ones who never intended to. The same person who loses himself seems to be the same that finds himself. And why? Well, they give the best of who they really are with no thought of return. Find a cause you can put your heart into, my son, in which to lose yourself. I started the Deseret Donor Advised Fund for this reason. Because in the end, my greatest legacy is you.
Let's kick off AFR on BYU TV.
What they did in that fourth quarter was not unexpected in my book.
Everyone did their job perfectly, and it resulted in, obviously, a touchdown.
Who knew that he had these kind of hands?
And right at the snap of the football, they both go right downhill. And that was the end of that. He knocked him down pretty quickly.
BYU Sports Nation is presented by the BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere.
It's another combined coach show tomorrow, the final one. Kalani Sitake and Mark Pope. Fun times. Tuesday night, 8:30 Eastern on the BYU TDS.
Welcome back to BYU Sports Nation live from Studio B. I ask all of you, what's better than one national champion? How about two national champions, both in Studio B to recap an unforgettable and national championship winning weekend.
Oh!
Whittni, Orton, and Connor Mantz, congratulations, you two.
You got the
champs are in
too.
Studio B.
Pretty awesome.
You brought your trophies. Okay, Whittni, let's start with you because you were the first to race, and you come away in your final collegiate race with that national championship. What does that mean to you to go out with that statement?
Yeah, I feel like it was just kind of, honestly, a perfect ending. That's what it felt like to me, which was very, very special, especially with Coach T and the team. Like, I don't know. It was a special team, and I don't know. There was just a lot. There's a lot leading up to that, a lot of ups and downs, and then to end like that was very special. So
When did you realize I'm going to win the national championship?
I tried, like, I was thinking that in my mind before it was over. And I was like, okay, like, you can't think about that too soon. I had no idea, like, where anyone was behind me, so.
You're not like Connor where you look back?
No, I don't ever do that. I should do that, though. Because I don't want to look back and see him closer and be like, oh, no, you know. But, yeah, I did think about it for a second, and then I just had, like, reflip, like, okay, you're actually not done running. Like, you need to go faster. Like, go faster now and finish the race. You can actually win. It would be really sad if someone just got you right at the end, you know, but, yeah.
Incredible. Panguitch, Utah represents.
Yeah.
Whittington Studio B,
Yeah.
Whitney Orton. Okay, Connor, I love that you said that you were able to enjoy the last 100 yards of your national championship run. And my question is, does anybody in the history of humankind enjoy the last 100 meters of a 10K sprint? That's incredible.
I would hope everybody enjoys it. Maybe if they don't, maybe they pick the wrong sport, you know?
Yeah, Jared Ward has talked about, I hate marathons. They're hard.
Oh. Maybe he picked the wrong sport.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
So, what was that like for you emotionally as you're bearing down knowing that you're going to win back-to-back titles and do so in the same calendar year?
Yeah, it was tough. I think, like, I mean, you never know if you're going to win until after you cross that finish line. You get hopeful, but, like, in the race, it's just like, okay, like, I can win this, but just have to make sure, like, I stay, stay on doing the same progress and everything, just, like, I don't know, focus on the little things I need to at the moment and not focus on the result. And so, I don't know, in the race, I was just nervous. And before the race, I was nervous. In the race, I was like, okay, just stay in the moment, don't think, like, what if I finish this way or what if I finish that way? Because it's easy to have those little thoughts come into your mind and think, oh, if I win this, like, that's going to be awesome. Or, hey, if I finish 10th, that'll be fine. Or, hey, if I take dead last, that'll suck, you know? Yeah, you just never know.
So you're thinking on that during the race?
Sometimes, for a little bit.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
You're not supposed to be thinking about that during the race.
You have 20 to 30 minutes to think about whatever. It's not like you can throw in some AirPods or whatever, right? Just jam to some Rush or something. Okay, you go back to back, and then in the final 1K there, you made your move. Talk about that moment that ended up being when you won the race.
Yeah, so with about 1,000 meters to go, there's a bunch of guys in contention. There's about 3 of us, and then some guy from well behind us comes up and just passes us all. And
Campbell.
Like, yeah, a Campbell guy. And he passes us all, and we're like, oh, crap, like, this guy's moving. And then he slowed down, and we're like, oh, okay, like, that's it. Like, he's gone. So we passed him, and we're running up this hill, and, like, don't see him again. And then as soon as we crest the hill, he has, and I had to rewatch the video because I was like, man, I thought he dropped back a lot, and he had. And then as soon as we hit the hill, he caught back up, and then as soon as we crested, he passed us again. And it was like, man, this guy's flying. Like, I'm like, just got to go with him, you know. If this pace is too quick, like, I'll just, at the end, you know, if I fall or if anything happens, like, that's it, like, whatever. But at least I go for it. And then, yeah, we were sprinting for a good, like, 200 meters, as if it was a 200-meter sprint, 500 meters out. And so the last 300 meters, he kept looking back at me. He's just like, is this guy still here? Is this guy still here? Thinking I wasn't going to be there. And then he slowed down, like, just a little bit. And I was like, okay, if he's slowing down, that means he's tired. I have to pass him now. Because nothing's more demoralizing than being really tired and then seeing somebody just fly right by you. So did that, and then kept looking back to make sure he's not coming back. So.
And no one was coming back. You've won back-to-back, baby.
Yeah.
You defended it. What was that like for you to win it once? That's amazing. But the pressure was on you to win it again. You delivered.
Yeah, I mean, it meant a lot. It was tough. Because it was like, before the race, it's like, okay, like, everyone's expecting me to win this, and I'm expecting it of myself. But usually I just have the internal pressure I put on myself. Not the pressure that, you know, comes with interviews where people are like, okay, so, like, you're the favorite coming in. How are you feeling? It wasn't like I had to go out there and prove myself for the first time. It was like, oh, I got to show, like, I'm consistently good. So, I don't know, it meant a lot. Even I think that was one of the toughest races just because of that whole mental aspect.
Sure, yeah, the mental gymnastics there. Connor Mantz and Whittni Orton with us on BYU Sports Nation. For the record, you've both demoralized a lot of people in those scenarios. So congratulations on that as well. Whittni, I want to talk about the emotional side for you. How long did it take to set in for you to realize what you had actually accomplished? Like, when did that really start to sink in?
I feel like it's still kind of sinking in. It hasn't been that long, but yeah, definitely you feel it when you cross the line. You know, you feel what you did a little bit. And I am not an emotional person. Like, I don't cry. Like, it's really hard to make me cry, usually. And I was emotional, and I like hugged the guy that like. He was like, I don't even want to hug you, but I was like, I'm hugging somebody. Like, I was just so like, so happy. Like, if you watch
like
the
a race official or something?
Yeah, like the first person I saw, I was like, oh. I was like hugging
He's
him.
like, keep going.
He's like, what are you doing? I'm like, you know what? I needed a hug, okay? But yeah, it's still sinking in for sure, and yeah. I don't know.
Sure.
It's
a lot,
really
to
hard.
take in. And your team finishes second.
And you guys took second, which is great.
Incredible. So what was that like to celebrate your individual national championship? And then while it wasn't a team national title and you didn't repeat there, you still finished second. What was that like for you?
It's incredible because, I don't know, to do that like 3 years of top two.
Yes.
Pretty incredible, honestly. And North Carolina was just, they were so good this year. So for us to fight the way that we did, like right after the race, I don't even know how everyone's race went out, you know, because I'm focusing on my own race. And so you finish and you're like, I don't know if you're happy or sad. So you're like trying to like gauge how to like interact with your team and stuff. But when we all like sat down and talked about it and really discussed like what happened, we were like, that was incredible. Like they fought so hard. So it was really cool to be a part of that and to go back and watch it and be a part of it. So
1988, last year, the same school produced 2 individual winners, and you guys did it. So congratulations on the national championships. What's next, by the way, for each of you? Connor, then.
I'm still figuring it out. Might run a half marathon soon. Might just, I don't know, hoping to sign with the shoe company soon enough. But
nice.
It's hard to, I don't know, hard to know right now.
The answer is your next class, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just kidding.
My next class got canceled, so.
Oh, nice! Nice!
That's the biggest win of all!
When you win a national championship, you don't have to go to class. It's great, yeah. What's next for you, Whittni?
We're going to Boston next weekend. So
nice.
Doing a 5K there, so that'll be cool.
Incredible.
That's awesome.
Running is in your futures.
It is.
It's in your present.
It's safe to say that
as well. Yeah.
We're so thrilled for you, and I hope you know and feel the love and passion behind all Cougar fans for what cross country has done, you know, because you should feel
It's been so fun.
It's incredible what you've done. So, and no words can kind of encapsulate what you've pulled off.
But we do have a sausage burrito from McDonald's if you'd like one.
Here, Whittni, congratulations.
That's probably a compliance issue. We can't actually do that. Never mind. Okay, thanks for coming in.
Well, we're done with our eligibility, so.
Hey, that's true.
Let's go.
Here's a wad of cash.
Like, give me the burrito.
Coming up, prop picks. Did I seal the season championship for the win?
We don't need to discuss that. Plus, our rise and shout out.
Ooh, can I hold one?
Yes, let Jarom hold the trophy.
Ah, nice.
How does it feel, Jarom?
Better than when I took 55th in 5A in Utah.
All right.
Way better.
Stay with us for more on BYU Sports Nation.
This portion of BYU Sports Nation is presented by BYU Food to Go, the MVP of your next event.
Tim Daly Ford in Spanish Fork sells Ford vehicles including the F-150, the pickup designed for work and play. Tim Daly Ford maintains a large inventory, providing more choices for selecting an F-150 with the power and engineering to carry and tow heavy loads. The F-150's design offers comfort, safety, and a range of options to choose from. Think Ford, think Tim Daly Ford in Spanish Fork.
Hey family, if you're looking for something new to watch, stop scrolling and start streaming. BYU TV has a ton of great options to binge together. From bold adventure to family drama and even a little fun, there's something for everyone. Binge entire series, experience all the feels, immerse in non-stop intrigue, and treat yourself to unexpected turns. Think you know BYU TV? We're just getting started.
I don't know why terrible things happen to us sometimes, but I have to believe that something good is gonna come out of this.
This portion of BYU Sports Nation is presented by Mountain America, the official credit union of BYU Athletics.
On the latest Deep Blue podcast, I talked with Associate Athletic Director Whittni Johnson about BYU Athletics' efforts in inclusion and diversity. Listen to it on the BYU Radio app and where podcasts are found.
BYU Sports Nation always available on demand via the BYU TV and BYU Radio apps. Let's recap our prop picks and our double down scenarios. We'll start with prop picks, Jarom. Presented by BYU Food to Go, the MVP of your next event.
1 point scored by BYU in the first and fourth combined. You said 21. I said 28. It was 14 points. Spencer.
Okay, so finally I won a point. Number 2, who will be BYU's second leading rusher? And how many yards? Let's go ahead and make it 2 points for me.
Yeah.
I had Jaron Hall as the second leading rusher, and he was. I said 34 yards, 21, but close enough.
Lopina Katoa. More.
Okay.
Number 3, what was the turnover margin be? You said +1. I said +2. Jacob Robinson, my guy.
All right.
And I win again. 4-2. There's 2 ties, and Jason and Brian have 1 each as well.
Okay, so I got to win the final 2.
You got to win the final.
Tie you.
Yeah, win, not tie.
Hey, a win this last week is good for me. Okay, double
Yes.
down. So how double down works is you get 1 point. If you get both right, then you get an extra bonus point for a total of 3. I said BYU will hold Central Methodist to 48 or fewer points. That didn't happen. 61, so swing and a miss there. I said Spencer Johnson will score 12 or more. You said it wasn't much of a stretch. Apparently it was a stretch because it didn't happen.
BYU win by 40+. That didn't happen. BYU have 6 players in double figures. That did happen. 8-3-1. I'm up.
Gotta get going on that. Question of the day. Who's the best of the best, or what was the best of the best in Cougar sports on Saturday? Our Elite Voice of the Day, presented by Sundance Mountain Resort. Caleb Hatch on Instagram says, cross-country national championships were a huge deal. Soccer's win also huge, considering they upset the #1 team in the country and are playing for an Elite 8 this Saturday. Either way, BYU Athletics thrived overall. It was all elite.
It was an amazing
What was the
day.
best? All of it. All right, and we have a very special Rise and Shout Out today, presented by Mountain America, the official credit union of BYU Athletics. Certainly a somber tone here.
Jan Jorgensen, former BYU player, his son Truman, at the age of 2, passed away due to a heart defect, HLHS. We were thinking about Jan and his family. Really tough news. Truman died on Friday.
Truman, what a hero. We love the Jorgensen family, and we're definitely thinking about you. Our thanks to today's guests, Trevor Matich, Connor Mantz, and Whittni Orton. For Jarom, I'm Spencer. Shout out to Diane Gawalaku. Coordinator's Corner is live on the BYU TV app with Greg Rubel and Elisa Tuiaki in 2 minutes. Go Cougs.